Instead of answering with words, I reached for the buttons of his shirt, my fingers working slowly, deliberately. His breath hitched, his hands settling on my waist as I pushed the heavy chambray fabric from his shoulders. The low, amber light from the antique floor lamp cast golden shadows across his skin, highlighting the corded strength of a man who worked with his hands, a strength I'd only imagined before. "Beautiful," Julian whispered, his hands skimming up my sides, and I realized with a jolt he meant me. The thin silk of my dress slipped away under his careful touch, pooling around my ankles on the heart pine floor like ink-dark water. I should have felt exposed, vulnerable, standing bare in the middle of my own living room. But the way he looked at me, not with lust, but with a kind of awestruck reverence, like I was something miraculous he'd just unearthed, made me feel incandescently powerful instead. He lifted me easily, the faint scent of sawdust and bergamot clinging to him. He carried me to the worn velvet couch we had just wrestled into place, laying me down with a gentleness that seemed at odds with the raw hunger in his eyes. The velvet was soft against my back, but his hands were warm, tracing patterns of fire across my skin. Welcome to the heartstrings and scars, where we unravel the untold stories of love, betrayal, and the life-changing lessons they leave behind. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. We promise you stories that will make you reflect, question, and maybe even see yourself in the characters we share. "Tell me what you need, Ilera," he said, his voice low and rough with a want that echoed my own. "You," I breathed, the word of confession. "Just you." His mouth found mine again, hungrier this time, less restrained. I could taste the desperate desire on his lips, feel it in the way his hands trembled slightly as they explored the curve of my waist, the swell of my hip. When he kissed down my throat, finding that exquisitely sensitive spot just below my ear that made me arch beneath him, I couldn't hold back the soft, keening moan that escaped. "So responsive," he murmured against my skin, the words of vibration that shot straight to my core. "So perfect." His lips continued their unhurried journey, a devastating exploration that discovered places that made me gasp, made me clutch at his broad shoulders. Every touch was deliberate, patient, like he was memorizing the map of me with his mouth. The sensation was overwhelming, the beautiful contrast of his calloused palms against my smooth skin, the gentle, electric scrape of his stubble, the unnerving way he seemed to know exactly where to touch, where to press, to make me tremble on the verge of unraveling. When he settled between my thighs, his breath warm and moist against my most sensitive skin, I thought I might come apart from the sheer, agonizing weight of anticipation alone. His first touch was featherlight, a teasing, ghostly caress that made me arch toward him with a desperate, unspoken need. "Patience," he whispered, and I could hear the smile in his voice, but patience was the last thing I wanted. I needed more. I needed him to stop holding back, to give in to the savage hunger I could see burning in the depths of his dark eyes. When he finally gave me what I craved, the sensation was electric, a bolt of pure lightning that sent shockwaves of pleasure through my entire body. My fingers tangled in his thick, silver-streaked hair, holding him close as he worked his patient, perfect magic. He was thorough, relentless, bringing me to the very peak again and again before pulling back just enough, keeping me suspended in that delicious, maddening tension. "Please," I gasped, my body trembling with a need, so profound it was painful. This time, he listened. His rhythm intensified, his tongue stroking and teasing until I shattered, crying out his name as wave after glorious wave of release crashed over me. He held me through it, his hands gentle on my thighs, his mouth soft against my skin until the last tremor faded. When I could breathe again, I pulled him up to me, tasting myself on his lips as we kissed, deep and slow. His body was tense with restraint, with his own unfulfilled need, and I wanted No, I needed to give him the same soul-stealing pleasure he'd given me. I pushed him back against the velvet cushions, straddling his lap, feeling a surge of power as his hands gripped my hips. The hard evidence of his desire pressed against me, hot and insistent, making us both groan. "Ilara," he said, my name a warning and a plea. I silenced him with a kiss, positioning myself above him, taking him inside me slowly, deliberately. We both gasped at the sheer sensation of it. He filled me completely, perfectly, a feeling of rightness so profound it felt like coming home. For a heartbeat, we stayed still, adjusting to the intimate connection, to the staggering reality of what we were doing. Then I began to move, setting a slow, rocking rhythm that had him gripping the couch cushions, his head falling back with a groan of pure pleasure. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button to support us and join our growing community. We promise you stories that will make you reflect, question, and maybe even see yourself in the characters we share. "God, you feel incredible," he rasped. The praise sent heat spiraling through me, encouraging me to move faster, to take what I needed. His hands guided my hips, helping me find the perfect angle, the one that made stars explode behind my eyelids. We moved together like we'd been doing this for years, like our bodies knew each other's secrets. Every thrust, every roll of my hips built the tension higher, tighter, until I could barely think past the need consuming me. When his thumb found that sensitive spot where we were joined, I cried out, my inner muscles clenching around him. The sensation pushed him over the edge. His grip tightened as he pulled me down for a desperate, crushing kiss, swallowing each other's moans as we came apart together. Afterward, we stayed entwined, my head on his chest, his fingers stroking through my damp hair. The reality of what we'd done, here in the historic Savannah townhome I shared with my husband, should have crashed over me with guilt and regret. Instead, I felt complete for the first time in years. "We can't do this again," I whispered against his skin, not meaning a single word, hoping he'd argue. "I know," he said, his arms tightening around me. But even as we said the words, I was already craving his touch again, already planning the next time Liam would be away on business. This was dangerous, destructive, everything I should avoid. It was also the most alive I'd felt in years. The old ship's clock on the mantel chimed midnight, the sound making us both start. Reality began to creep back in. My husband's house, my marriage, the line we'd crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. "I should go," Julian said, but made no move to leave. "You should," I agreed, making no move to let him. We dressed slowly, reluctantly, stealing kisses between adjustments of clothing. At the grand, heavy door, he cupped my face in his hands, his thumb brushing across my swollen lips. "This can't happen again," he said, but his eyes told a different story. "I know." He kissed me one last time, soft and lingering, before stepping out into the humid southern night. I watched from the window as his headlights disappeared down the cobblestone street, my body still humming with the memory of his touch. The next morning, Liam came home from his tech conference in Austin, exhausted and distant, barely looking at me as he headed straight for the shower. I made coffee, going through the motions of normalcy, all while feeling like I was wearing my secret like a second skin. "How was your week?" he asked, absently, scrolling through his phone at the breakfast nook. "Quiet," I lied, the word tasting like ash. Julian stopped by, helped me with that sagging bookshelf in the library. Liam glanced up, his eyes scanning the room. "Looks good," he said, already turning back to his phone. If only he knew what else had happened. How his wife had come apart in another man's arms just hours ago. The thought should have filled me with shame. Instead, it sent a treacherous heat pooling low in my belly. 3 days passed before Julian called, his voice carefully controlled. "Professional. I think I left my vintage wood plane," he said, Mind if I come by to get it? We both knew he hadn't left anything. We both knew why he was really calling. Liam's in San Francisco until Friday, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I'll be there in 20 minutes. This time there was no pretense, no careful conversation. The moment he stepped through the door, we were on each other. Months of careful restraint finally shattered completely. He pressed me against the cool plaster of the entryway wall, his mouth hungry on mine, his hands already working at the buttons of my blouse. I tried to stay away. He growled against my throat. Don't, I gasped, arching into his touch. Don't ever stay away. My blouse hit the floor, followed quickly by his shirt. This time, there was no slow exploration, no careful reverence. This was raw need, desperate hunger, the inevitable collision of two people who'd been denying themselves for far too long. He lifted me, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me back to the living room, the scene of our first surrender. But instead of the couch, he sat me on the edge of the heavy mahogany coffee table, his hands spreading my thighs as he knelt between them. I've thought about nothing but you, he confessed, his fingers working at the clasp of my bra. How you felt, how you tasted, the sounds you made. His words sent liquid fire through my veins. When my bra joined the growing pile of clothing, his mouth was immediately on my breast, drawing the sensitive peak between his lips until I cried out. He was in no hurry, lavishing attention on first one breast, then the other, until I was trembling and pliant with need. Only then did his hands move lower, finding me already slick with want. So ready for me, he murmured, his fingers stroking through my wetness. Always so ready. When he pushed one finger inside me, then two, I had to grip the edge of the table to keep from falling. He worked me expertly, his thumbs circling that sensitive bundle of nerves while his fingers moved in and out, building me toward a release that felt just out of reach. Come for me, he commanded, his voice rough with his own need. Let me watch you fall apart. His words, combined with the perfect, maddening pressure of his touch, sent me over the edge. I cried out, my body arching as pleasure crashed through me in violent, shuddering waves. Before the aftershocks had even faded, he was positioning himself at my entrance, the head of his length pressing against my still sensitive flesh. Look at me, he said, waiting until my glazed eyes focused on his. I want to see your face when I fill you. He pushed forward slowly, both of us groaning as he stretched me, filled me, completed me. When he was fully seated inside, we stayed still for a moment, foreheads pressed together, breathing hard. Perfect, he whispered. We're perfect together. Then he began to move, each thrust deep and purposeful, angled to hit that spot deep inside me that made me see stars. I wrapped my legs tighter around his waist, pulling him deeper, harder, desperate for everything he could give me. The coffee table creaked beneath us, the sound mixing with our gasps and moans, with the slick sound of our bodies joining again and again. This was madness, beautiful and terrible and absolutely irresistible. More, I gasped, my nails digging into his shoulders. I need more. He responded by lifting my hips, changing the angle, driving deeper until I was sobbing with pleasure. Every nerve ending was on fire. When his thumb found my center again, circling in perfect rhythm with his thrusts, I knew I was lost. The orgasm built like a storm, gathering strength until it was all-consuming. That's it, he growled, feeling me tighten around him. Come on, my girl, show me how good I make you feel. His words pushed me over, and I shattered, screaming his name as my body convulsed around him. The sight and feel of my release triggered his own, and he buried himself deep, his own cry of completion muffled against my shoulder as he filled me with his warmth. We stayed connected for a long time, both trembling, both knowing we'd crossed another line. This wasn't just physical anymore. This was something deeper, more dangerous. What are we doing? I whispered. Something we can't stop, he replied, his lips brushing my temple. And he was right. Over the following weeks, we met whenever we could, stealing moments of passion in the house I shared with my husband. Each encounter was more intense than the last. Sometimes it was slow and tender. Other times it was fast and desperate. One evening, as a summer thunderstorm drummed against the tall bay windows, Julian arrived to find me in nothing but one of Liam's crisp white work shirts. The sight of me in my husband's clothing should have been a stark reminder of our betrayal. Instead, it seemed to inflame him. "Take it off," he said, his voice dark with command. I hesitated, recognizing the symbolism, the final destruction of my marriage's boundaries. Then I pulled the shirt over my head, standing before him, completely bare, completely his. He was on me in seconds, taking me against the living room wall, my legs wrapped around his waist, my back pressed against the cool plaster as he drove into me again and again. "Mine," he growled against my throat, each word punctuated by a thrust. "You're mine." And I was completely, utterly, irreversibly his. The affair continued for 2 months, a secret dance of stolen moments. But secrets have a way of demanding acknowledgement. It all came to a head on a rainy Thursday evening. Liam had promised to work late, but as Julian and I lay tangled on the living room floor, I heard the familiar, grating sound of a key in the old brass lock. Terror froze my blood. Liam was home. We scrambled for our clothes, clumsy with adrenaline. I managed to pull on my dress while Julian got his pants back on, but there was no hiding what we'd been doing. The air still smelled of our passion. Our hair was a mess, our lips swollen. "Ilara," Liam called from the hallway. "I'm home early." Thought we could finally. He stopped dead in the living room doorway. He took in the scene. His wife, disheveled and flushed. His brother-in-law, shirtless and guilty. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, with devastating revelation. "I see," Liam said finally, his voice eerily calm. "What happened next changed everything. But that's a story for another time. The question is, if you were in my place, would you have been able to resist? Would you have chosen the predictable comfort of your marriage or the intoxicating unknown? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And don't forget to like this video and hit subscribe for more stories that push the boundaries. Turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.